the Tobin Tax. One of the first areas where the General Assembly, acting as the world's legislature, might act is the problem of financing the United Nations. For the first 40 years of the United Nations history, the Soviet Union was frequently intentionally in arrears with its dues payment. During the last 20 years, the U.S. has frequently been the problem. In both cases, late payments reflected dissatisfaction with something the UN was doing. It is time to consider financing independent of the national governments. The Tobin Tax has been suggested as a solution. The Tobin Tax was proposed in 1972 by James Tobin, a Nobel laureate economist at Yale. The primary initial intent was to stabilize international exchange rates by discouraging speculation. The cost in dollars of 100 yen in Tokyo usually differs very slightly from the cost in London. The exchange of billions of dollars an hour yielded at the end of each day millions in profit. An extremely small tax on purely money-for-money transactions was proposed by Tobin. His secondary purpose was to provide funding for the UN goals, such as reducing world poverty, disease, and to address global warming. He eventually abandoned the first goal, but the second goal will be of real interest to the General Assembly, acting as the UN's legislature. Even an infinitesimal tax of 0.02% would generate some 40 to 60 billion per year. That would be more than enough financial support to meet the UN's Millennium Development Goals by 2015. Many of the diplomats we meet with have asked how the power of the General Assembly can be limited so as not to improperly interfere with each nation's internal sovereignty. The first check will be the common sense of the ambassadors who sit in the General Assembly and who introduce proposals for consideration. The second is the system itself. The checks and balances within the General Assembly are the three majorities required. To become world law, the proposal would have to have the support of most of the nations, most of the people, and most of the power in the world. The third check would be the World Court, also known as the International Court of Justice. The World Court is held in high esteem within the corridors of the UN. That type of check exists in the United States federal government and many others. The Supreme Court has, in the last 10 years, declared acts of Congress to be lacking constitutional authorization more than 10 times. The World Court could be called upon to decide the same issue, whether the legislation enacted by the General Assembly went beyond global problems.